Thank you,
Mazel
Debbie.
tov.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to mute people just to cut down on background noise. Linda, you should just know that even though you sent me the reminder today, I totally forgot until Debbie said right at the beginning when I got on that we needed to record. You haven't missed anything, but it's thanks to Debbie. Okay, here we go. Good evening, everybody. Chapter 5. Chapter 5. Belshazzar Malka. Belshazzar the king. Avad. Wait, I'm sorry. Let me bring back into context. Nebuchadnezzar had a dream that basically indicated, again, it was this total mystery and didn't understand what it meant. And he called in his wise men, and nobody really knew what it meant. And then Daniel understood. And basically, the punchline of the dream was that Nebuchadnezzar, the punchline, the interpretation of the dream, was the Nebuchadnezzar would become sort of one with the animals of the field. And Daniel tells him this is a great warning from God that if you become haughty and you don't give charity and you don't help other people, you're going to just become a person of the field. If you remember, we had two pshatim. One is that he's just going to go crazy. The other is that he would unfortunately fall into a depression, and he would just sort of go off into isolation. In any event, Nebuchadnezzar is very, very jarred by this interpretation from Daniel, and he proceeds to be very diligent about giving charity for the next year. But then he slacks off, and lo and behold, he becomes a person of the field. But when he hears the interpretation of the dream, he has again great, great reverence for Daniel and for Hashem. But now we fast forward in the story. And at this point in the story, Nebuchadnezzar is not the king. I could be mistaken. I don't think this is during his period of going off into the forest. I think this is just later in life, though I could be mistaken about that. Or not in life, later after his passing, but I could be mistaken about that. But in any event, clearly this is years later. Okay, chapter 5, verse 1. Belshazzar Malka. Belshazzar is the the Mitzvah David says this is a grandson of Nebuchadnezzar. Rashi says this is a son of Nebuchadnezzar. Um, what they both agree on, so they have a difference of opinion about the relation, but they both agree that this is not the immediate successor to Nebuchadnezzar, but the person who became king after Nebuchadnezzar's successor. And this king Belshazzar made a great feast, Avad Lechem Rav, made a great feast, Rav Ravoni Alaf, for 1,000 officers. Vilikavel Alpa, and in front of all of these people, Chamra Shaseh. He drank wine in front of all of these people. Um, there's an interesting Rav Sajigon here. If you remember, the name Belshazzar might ring a bell because that's the name Daniel was given. But actually, the name Daniel was given has a Tess in it. I just want to find, um, sorry, just trying to find where it says his name, for example. I'm not finding it now, but it had a Tess in it. Rav Saja Gaon says it's a very interesting thing that Belshazzar actually means Balash Otsar, that the name used here for this king, for this either son or grandson of Nebuchadnezzar, was that he looked into the treasury. And the reason why he's called that is because he extended his hand against the treasury of God, which we'll touch on in a few moments. Um, okay, now, why is Belshazzar? Okay, somebody's talking. Okay, why is Belshazzar making this feast? Matsudas David says that he had conquered Daryavesh. He had conquered another king, and he was celebrating the fact that he had conquered this king. But the Malbim touches on something else. This is a very famous thing. Some of you might have heard of this before. There was a prophecy from Yirmiyah that the Jewish people would be in exile in Bavel for 70 years. And according to the count that the people of Bavel had, that Belshazzar had, the 70 years had already um, ended. And the Jewish people are still there. And they haven't built the Beis Hamikdash. And this is a point of great celebration because the implication that the Jewish people would only be in Bavel for 70 years is that Bavel is going to be going downhill. And the fact that it's 70 years and the Jewish people are still stuck there um, speaks to the fact that Bavel is stronger than what Yirmiyah had prophesied, and maybe this means that Bavel is unstoppable. And that's why the Malbim brings down, that's why he's making this great, great celebration. Um, okay. I also want to mention that the Malbim points out that this is a novelty that he drank wine in their presence. Evidently, the norm of the time was not to drink wine in their presence. Um, the norm of the time was the norm of the time was not to drink wine in their presence. The norm of the time was that the king would drink wine separately, and so his drinking wine in their presence was like a way of showing kavod to them. This seems to definitely be some type of miscount. I don't have a calculation or an explanation as to what the miscount is about. But it's traditionally understood as a miscount. Mrs. Shines, do you have something on that?
No, just that the vessel that they were drinking from were from the Beit HaMikdash.
Right. We're going to get to that very soon. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Okay. Verse 2. Belshazzar Amar b'te'em chamra. As people are, as he is partaking of wine, and Matsudas David says that he's getting kind of tipsy. Okay, as he's partaking of the wine, he says, Laisoya limone dahava v'chaspa. Bring in the vessels of gold and silver. Tihanpek Nebuchadnezzar avuhi, that Nebuchadnezzar, his father, had taken. Min heichla divi rushlem. Get the gold and silver vessels that Nebuchadnezzar, my father, took from the temple in Jerusalem. Just a small sidebar for a moment. If you say, like Rashi, that he is a son of Nebuchadnezzar, then of course it makes sense why he's referred to as Nebuchadnezzar, his father. If you say he's a grandson, why he's referred to as father? So famous idea. Mitzvah David explains. Gemara says it in different places that grandchildren are like children. So, okay, fine. Now, this was a very brash thing for Belshazzar to do, to publicly call for the usage of the gold and silver of the Beis Hamikdash and drinking this wine in celebration. And Mitzvah says he was saying it because he was under the influence of the alcohol. Um, the Malbim says an interesting thing. The Malbim says that the standard practice in the kingdom of Bavel was to respect different nationalities' religious appreciation of gods. So the idea of sort of stomping on the Jewish idea of God by by taking the vessels from the Beis Hamikdash was really not the normal way Belshazzar or his predecessors would have operated, and this was clearly under the influence of alcohol. Um, by by the way, um, the Malbim says that the very fact that, well, maybe we'll pass on that. Um, the Malbim does say something else. The Malbim says is that the fact that they're drinking from the gold and silver of the Beis Hamikdash is a statement that it's basically laughing in the face of Yirmiyahu's prophecy. It's laughing in the face of Yirmiyahu's prophecy. In other words, that he had said that the Jews are coming back to the Beis Hamikdash. They're not going back to the Beis Hamikdash. This might like tickle the back of your minds. There's a famous idea like this connected to Achashverosh, that when Achashverosh has the feast at the beginning of the Purim story, that it's a similar theme. Okay, let's go on. So we're in the middle of verse 2. V'yishtun v'hon malka v'rav Ravanoi sheglasa ulachenasa. So Belshazzar says, let's drink from this from these gold and silver from the temple in Jerusalem. Let's have the kings drink from it. Let's have the officers drink from it. Let's have the queens drink from it, and let's have the concubines drink from it. Verse 3. Beidayin haisiv manei dahavot yanpiku mineichla dives elokah divi as they brought out the golden vessels that as they brought out the golden vessels that they took from the Beis Hamikdash, be'ishtiv bahon malka v'rav Ravanoi sheglosei ulechenasei, and drink from them king and officers and the queens and the concubines. The Malbim just points out, to their credit, there's a certain there's a certain respect that they demonstrate here. That the officers or the attendants who are bringing out the vessels aren't actually going to drink from it. They bring it out because that's what Belshazzar commanded. But even though Belshazzar said, let the officers drink from it, the officers don't drink from it. You don't see the officers drink from it here. It says the officers brought it out. That's all that they did. They didn't want to do more than that. Verse 4. Ishtiv Chamra. So he's sitting there drinking wine. Vishabachu Leilohei Dahava Chaspa Chasha Farzala Ba'avna. So Masudas David says that the pshat in the pasuk is, as they're drinking the wine in the gold and silver from the Beis Hamikdash, they start saying praises to all the different gods, to all the different idols that are represented among their group. Gold idols, silver idols, copper, iron, stone, wood. There seems to be some implication in that we're going to drink from the vessels of the Beis Hamikdash. We're not so impressed by the Beis Hamikdash. We're not so impressed by the God of the Jews. And as we do that, we praise our own idols. Seems to be part of the point here. Okay. Verse 5. Ba shasa nefako etzba'on diyad enosh. At that time, so as Belshazzar is sitting with all of these officers, celebrating, according to one shot, celebrating the fact that clearly the prophecy of Yirmiyahu is not going to happen, celebrating that fact while drinking the vessels from the Beis Hamikdash, lo and behold, there is a fingers of the hand of a person, v'chosvin, and they write, lekovel nevrashta, opposite the candelabra, Algira Dichsal Hechla di Malka, on the wall of the king's palace. Umalka Chazeh, and the king sees Pas Yada di Chasva. This hand writing. This, of course, unless somebody tells me I'm wrong, is the source for that great phrase, to see the writing on the wall. But it's not just that that Belshazzar and his guests see the writing on the wall. They see a hand writing on the wall. There's a very interesting thing from Rav Sajigon here. Rav Sajigon says there is a pasuk elsewhere that refers to the angel Gabriel as an ish that takes on the image of a man. So he actually says it's specifically the angel Gabriel. The Malbim says that actually it's a very significant thing that they not only saw writing, but they saw a handwriting. And the significance of seeing the handwriting is that maybe somebody will say, you think it's writing on the wall, your eyes are playing tricks on you. Maybe someone will say, one of your enemies is playing tricks on you. So therefore, any such to dispel any such notion, there's actually an image of a hand writing on the wall. If that makes sense to everybody. Okay. Verse 6. Edayin Malka Zivoi Shnoi. At that moment, the king's face changes colors. I mean, this was terrifying. Birainohi Yivaldune. And all kinds of ideas start agitating him. Vikitre Chartse Mishtarin. I just hold on 1 second. This is like his sorry, somebody just say the translation, please. I'm not like his girdle like got undone. What do you have there?
His loins were loosened.
Sorry, excuse me. His loins were loosened. Thank you. His knees started knocking. So he became very, very nervous and it was a terrifying sight. Thank you very much, Elaine. We are going to see some discussion about this, what alphabet the writing was in. We're going to discuss it as we get further on in the parak. Thank you very much. Thank you for raising that question. Verse 7. Kare Malka B'chayil. So now the king is real scared. So with great force, with great loudness and emphasis, he calls out Lahela Loshvaya Kastaya Vigozraya. He calls in the different wise men. One Malka V'omar Lachakime Bavel. Tell you something, these wise men of Bavel, you kind of hope that they were good at telling the weather because it doesn't seem they have much of a clue when they're called on, at least in this story. So he calls out to the wise men of Bavel, Ticholanosh Yikrei Ksavadina, any person who can recognize this writing, Ufishrei Yechavinani, and can tell me the meaning of the writing, Argavana Yilbash, will wear beautifully colored garments. Va mincha didahava al tzavore, and there'll be, a chain of gold on his neck. V'salti b'malchusa yishlat, and he will rule over a third of the kingdom. Anybody who can tell me what this means, will get great honor and great power. I think things have shifted. If I'm not mistaken, with Nebuchadnezzar, it was, if you don't tell me what it means, you're going to die. So I guess Belshazzar's approach is a little different. If you tell me what it means, you'll get fabulously rewarded. I just want to remind everybody, we have the famous thing with Mordechai, when he's honored in Megillas Esther. It talks about how he goes out with levush tcheles v'argaman, with garments of tcheles, was this like bright blue, and argaman was like a purple. So this seems to be a very similar language here. Okay, next, Verse 8. Edayin alalin kochakime malka. So all, yeah, right. Yes, advocate of positive reinforcement. Thank you very much. Edayin alalin kochakime malka. All the wise men of the king came forward. V'lo choalin k'sav l'mikrei. They couldn't read the words. Ufishrei lo da l'malka. And they didn't know what the interpretation was either. The Malbim says it's not an extraneous statement. I mean, if they don't know the words, how are they going to know what it means? So sometimes theoretically it could be that they have some kind of deep. Remember, in this sefer we had that Nebuchadnezzar told them, even though I can't tell you the dream, tell me what it means. Clearly, it's like some kind of ability to tell the future or this or that. So theoretically, it could have been that they could understand the message of the writing on the wall without understanding the writing. But none of them could read the words, and none of them could read the words, and none of them could understand the message. Neither one. Verse 9. Edayin Malka Belshazzar Sagei Mispohal. So now Belshazzar is very agitated. Vizivoi Shonayin Aloi. And his appearance again changed. It's like his face changes colors. Virav Rivanoi Mishtabshin. And his officers are beginning to become nervous themselves, because if Belshazzar is nervous, there's reason for everyone in Belshazzar's orbit to be nervous, especially the guys who are supposed to know the answers. Verse 10. Malkasa Lakavel Mile Malka Virav Rivanoi. King. The king stood opposite all the different nobles and officers, Veshmishtaya Lilas, and that he had come to. Oh, I'm sorry. Verse 10. The queen, who's standing opposite the king and the officers. The queen, by the way, is the matriarch of the family, the wife of Nebuchadnezzar. So she's talking, again, depending on how you understand the story, she's talking to either her son or her grandson. So she says, as she's standing here at the celebration, the Veis Mishtaya Leila, she rose up at the celebration. Anas Malkasa, the queen spoke. Not everybody says it's the wife of Nebuchadnezzar, but that's what the Malbim says. Sorry. The queen spoke, Vamaris Malka La'omin Chayi. Again, this is like the normal preamble. King, you should live eternally. Al Yivaluch Rayonach. Let not your ideas agitate you. Vizivach Al Yishtano. And let not your face change colors. Verse 11. Isai Kvar b'malchusach. There is someone in your kingdom. Di Ruach Elokin Kadishin Bey. That the spirit of the holy God is within him. Uviyome avuch. And in the days during the reign of your father/grandfather, Nahiru Bisach Lisanu V'chachma Kechachmas Elokin Hishtichachas Bey. Great wisdom, like the wisdom of God, was found in him. Umalka Nebuchadnezzar avuch, and your father Nebuchadnezzar the king, Rav Chartumin Oshvin Kastoin Gozvin Hakimei avuch Malka. Your grandfather, made this wise man the chief of all the wise men of Bavel. Don't be worried. It might be that you think that nobody in Bavel has the answer for you. You didn't ask the right person. Because there was a great, great wise man during the days of Nebuchadnezzar. Verse 12, who has the wisdom of God, by the way. That's what she tells him. Kol kavel di ruach yatira umanda v'chsach lasanu mifashar chelmin. This divine, this remarkable spirit that he has gives him the ability to explain dreams. V'achavayis achidon, and that he understands and he can tell riddles. Umeshare kitrin, and that he can undo knots, things that are mysteries he can reveal. Hishtechachas be b'Daniel, Dimalka samshmei Belshazzar. Finally, here's the spelling of we're with the test. That's what I was looking for before. So there's this man Daniel, who Nebuchadnezzar named Belshazzar. Ka'an Daniel Yiskrei Ufishrei Yahachavei. Call in Daniel. He'll tell you what the writing means. Verse 13. Beidayin Daniel, Hu al Kadam Malka. Daniel was then brought before the king. Ane Malka v'amar le Daniel. The king says to Daniel, Ant hu Daniel, di min b'nei galusa di Yehud. Are you Daniel from the Jewish exile? Di I Malka av min Yehud. That the king brought you from among the Jews. The Malm just makes a really interesting point. There were two general exiles of the Jews into Bavel. And the first exile, the Galus of Yechoniah, was considered more prominent people. And so this is the point, like, in other words, you're like upper class Jew, right? In other words, you're from the group that were brought with Yechoniah, right? Verse 14. V'shimei salach tiruach elokin bach. I've heard about you, that there's a godly spirit within you. V'nahiru v'sachlasanu, and light and wisdom, v'chachma yatira hishtechachas bach. And, exceptional wisdom is found in you. Verse 15. Ucha'an hu'alu kadamai chakikmaya bashfaya. I've brought before me all these wise men. Tichsava dana yikron ufishrei lahodo usani. That they should read these words and tell me its meaning. And they don't have clarity to tell me what it means. Really interesting, Metzudas David. Metzudas David says he didn't. Let me ask you a question. Were the wise men able to read the words? We already learned they were able to read the words. And yet in this pasuk, Belshazzar, what he relays to Daniel is they couldn't explain what they were reading. And Metzudas David says, because he was embarrassed to tell Daniel that his wise men couldn't even read the words on the wall.
It's in Hebrew.
Well, we're gonna see about that, God willing. Yeah. Verse 16. Va'ana shimes alach. I've heard about you. The sequel pishrin lemifshar the kitrin lemishrei. I've heard about you that you can explain things. Ka'an hain tikul ksava lemikre. That you should please read these words. Ufishrei lahoda usani. Tell me what they mean. Our gavana tilshbash, as we've already said, I'll clothe you in wonderful clothes. V'amincha didahava al tzavrach. I'll put a golden chain around your neck. Salsa v'machusa tishlat. You'll govern over a third of the kingdom. 17. Beidayin ane Daniel. Daniel responded. V'yamar kadam malka mat nasach lach lehevyin. he said to the king, you should keep your presence. Un was biasach la'achron have. Give your spoils to someone else. Bram, ksava, ekre lamalka. I will read the writing for the king. Ufishrei odani. And I'll tell you what it means. So first of all, the Bible just says that what Daniel is saying here is, look, I just need to take a look at the wall. Once I take a look at the wall and I read what it says, I'm sure I'll be able to tell you what it means. And the Malbim says that what Daniel is saying is, I don't think you're asking me to do big shakes. I don't think you're asking me to do a particularly complicated thing. I wonder why I wonder why this got fuzzy.
It's all blurred.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's better now, right? I think so.
Yeah, when you're further away.
Oh, it's better when I go further away.
No, you can do it both ways.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
Danielle at this age is 80 years old.
Say it again.
Danielle at this time is 80 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you very much. Wait, so I interrupted myself. Excuse me. The Malbim explains that what Daniel is saying is, I'm just going to take a look at it and I'll read it. And once I read it, I'm sure I'll be able to tell you what it means. And you're not going to have to give me these great presents. It's not going to be so complicated. I'll just read it. Now, I don't think the point is that he's bragging. I think the point is that basically what he's saying, as a number of you have been saying, the writing's in Hebrew. This is a message from God for Daniel. So I'm just going to read the telegram. And so what he's saying is, no need to give me big fancy gifts. The reason it's going to be clear to me is because God is sending a message to you through me. And by the way, says the Malbim, you don't need to give me a gift to tell me to serve you. You're the king. Yeah, that's a really good point, Elaine. It seems from just the context that they should be so lucky to not want the messenger to be shot. It seems they just really had no idea, because he's very angry. In other words, at those moments, it's probably better to just tell him something than to tell him nothing. I think that's the traditional understanding. I think so. But it's an interesting point. Thank you for raising that. Verse 18. Ant Malka, Elokoi La, King, the upwards God, the lofty God, Hashem, Malchusa, Uravusa, Vikarvahatra, royalty, power, glory, Yahav, Nebuchadnezzar Avuch. Hashem brought great glory to Nebuchadnezzar, your father. Verse 19. Umun Ravusa Yahav lay, and through the great power that God gave Nebuchadnezzar, Kol Amamaya, Umaya, Velishonaya, Havazoin Vidachlin Min Kadamovi. All nations tremble in fear before him. He killed who he wanted to kill. And he struck who he wanted to strike. And he elevated who he wanted to elevate. And he lowered who he wanted to lower. The Malbim says this is an expression of the power of Nebuchadnezzar, that he didn't have to run anything by anybody. He didn't have to get permission from the committee to do X, Y, or Z. Verse 20. Uchdi rim levevei viruchei tikvas lazada. But even though Nebuchadnezzar was so powerful, when his heart became haughty and his spirit became strong to sin, Hanchas min karse malchuse. He was removed from his throne of kingdom. Vikara hadiv minei, and his glory was removed from him. God made Nebuchadnezzar so powerful. But once Nebuchadnezzar became haughty, or I guess haughty by Nebuchadnezzar's standards, he lost it. Verse 21, he became removed from people. Ulvave im sashavi, and his heart became with the beasts. Vimadraya midorei, and he lived among the mules. Ispa chesaron yitamune, he ate grass like oxen. Umitau shmai gishmei yitztaba, he became bathed from the dew of heaven. Ad yudah, until he knew the shalit elokoi la b'malchus anasha. He had to be subjected to all of this difficulty until he finally realized that God rules over the kingdom of man. And whoever God wants, that's the one who will rule. So Nebuchadnezzar lived this very difficult existence until he was humbled. Verse 22. Va'ant brei Belshazzar, and you, his son Belshazzar, lo hashpelt levavach, your heart did not become humbled. Kol kaveldi chodno yadata, despite what Nebuchadnezzar, your father or grandfather, experienced, you didn't learn the lesson. You weren't humbled. This whole feast was all about Belshazzar celebrating the demise of the Jewish people in the Beis HaMikdash, and the fact that the prophecy of Yirmiyah wasn't going to come so. That's very haughty. Verse 23, V'amari Shmaya Yisromamta, you elevated yourself over the master of the heavens. Ulamanaya divaise haisiv kadamach, you brought the vessels of his house before you. V'ant v'ravravanach sheiklasach ulchenasach cham rashasin bahon, you drank from the vessels, you, your officers, your queens, etc., drank from the vessels. And to gods of silver and gold and metals and stone and wood, they can't see, they can't hear, they don't know. Shibachta, you degraded the God of heaven and you praised these idols. And the God, that your soul is in the God's hands. And all of your paths are given over to him. La hadarta. You did not glorify God. You only glorified these idols. Verse 24. Beidayin min kadamoi shliach pasa diyada. In that context, when you were haughty before God, that's why there was a hand that came out. Chosava tana shim. And this writing was placed on the wall. And I'm terribly, terribly sorry. There's a board meeting called for tonight that they want me to come to. And I told them I have a shiur. And so the agreement was that I would end my shiur a little bit early. So I apologize. So
right in the middle.
I'm sorry. Well, actually, we'd be rushing the thing. He's about to explain the words.
No, you're not kidding me, yes.
Yeah, so we will pick up with this next week, God willing. Again, I'm sorry to not finish the parak, but pretty neat story.
Tell them Talmud Torah Keneged Kula.
Well, I'm saying, in other words, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said it that way. I volunteered. That this was far and away a better night for the vast majority of the board. So I said I can come and I get in my shiur a little bit early. That's the they've been going for a while now already, but whatever. So they want me to come for part of it. So but I apologize for ending early. Okay.
Is it on Zoom this year? I mean, this time?
The board
This
meeting.
No, it's
The
a
board
private
meeting
meeting,
on
but
Zoom?
I do have to run. Okay.
Okay.
Nothing like
Okay.
the
Be well,
cliffhanger.
everybody. Take care.
I'm not
Thank
kidding.
you.